Hey pros, it's AndrewXP and welcome back to another Clash Royale video. I am very excited to bring you guys this video today. It is going to be the first video of sort of a mini series, a few videos where I'm going to talk about strategies for beginners in Clash Royale. And even if you're not a beginner in Clash Royale, if you know a lot, I hope that I can still say some things that you may not have known throughout this series, teach you guys something. But generally, this mini-series is going to be based around strategies for beginners that are starting out in Clash Royale. I want to shout out Mr. Mata, my good pal Mike. He suggested this idea to me. He came to me asking for a deck that would work well for him in the very early stages of the game, and I decided to kind of turn that into this huge mini-series where I would talk about decks, but also talk about strategy behind the decks and things of that nature. So thank you, Mike, for that idea. And let's get right into it. So in this particular video, I'm going to talk about how to counter more effectively, and I'm also going to show you guys a deck that illustrates all the points that I talk about very well. Let's go into that deck right now. So this is the deck. I'm going to show you guys some gameplay at the very end, but first I'm going to talk more about the strategy, and then we're going to work our way into talking about the deck. But here it is. 6 of these 8 cards you can get in just the training camp. The Spear Goblins you can get in Goblin Stadium, which is Arena 1. You can get them straight with 0 trophies. But the Tombstone, you have to be Arena 2, which means you have to have 400 trophies, which takes, I don't know, not a couple games, but a good amount of games to actually get to the Tombstone. So it's still not necessarily hard to get it, but you do need to get to Arena 2 in order to get the Tombstone. An alternative for this, for example, the Witch, it is an epic card, so it might not be the easiest card to get. If you still don't have the Witch at this time, you can feel free to replace it with the Archers. They still basically do the same thing. And if you haven't reached Arena 2 yet, you can replace the Tombstone with the Skeleton Army or possibly the regular Goblins if you don't have the Skeleton Army either. So that is the deck. I'll come back to this deck at the end, but now I'm going to talk about strategy and how to effectively counter. Alright, so every single card in Clash Royale has different strengths and weaknesses. So for example, with the Golem has extremely high health. Hit points are 4,256, yet its speed is very slow. So every card is good at some things and bad at others, which means that they're also good against certain cards and bad against other cards. If a troop is coming towards your tower, some cards are better at stopping or countering that card than other cards are. For example, arrows are really good at stopping minions, but aren't that great at stopping a knight. Another example is that a fireball can stop archers, but isn't so great at stopping a P.E.K.K.A. A final example is that the Valkyrie stops skeletons, but can't stop a baby dragon. Now, I assume that if you're watching this, you probably already understand that. It only takes 1 or 2 games to realize that, and I'm sure that if you're watching this video titled How to Effectively Counter in Clash Royale, you probably know what countering is. So that's generally one of the easier parts to understand. Unfortunately, Clash Royale isn't that easy. Opponents don't just send one card down the lane for you to counter. They're going to send multiple cards in what is called a push. They're going to send you 2, 3, even 4 different cards that you're going to have to stop all at the same time. And that's where Clash Royale is really hard. An example is that the arrows can stop the minions, like I said before, but if you add a giant to it, unfortunately it's not going to be able to stop the giant. In order to stop this push, you're going to need a skeleton army as well. This seems fairly easy as well, but I'm sure that if you're watching this video you know that it's not as easy as it seems. For example, what if they put a bomber in with the giants and the minions? If you try to use arrows and a skeleton army to stop this, it's just not going to work because the bomber is going to destroy the skeleton army. The bomber and the giant are still going to be alive to do damage on your tower. I'm going to break down now for you guys the average push and the best way to going about stopping it. In the average push, there are 3 types of cards: tanks, ranged shooters, and supports. Tanks usually lead the way and they soak up damage. They have more health, do higher attack damage, and are generally slower than all the rest of the cards. Ranged shooters are usually placed behind the tank and pick off the defenses. Ranged shooters usually attack faster at a longer range and tend to have either splash damage or a very high amount of damage. Usually these cards are very good against counters to tanks such as skeletons, many goblins, or different kinds of towers. The last type of card, or the support card, is just all the extra cards that are thrown into each push. So for example, in the push with the giant bomber and the minions, the giant is the tank, the bomber is the ranged shooter, and the minions are the support. When defending a push, it's important to take out the ranged shooter first because usually they are good against the counter to the tank. If the support troops are stopping you from doing that, you need to take out the support first and then the ranged shooter and finally the tank. An example of this is if you're trying to take out the bomber using a witch and the witch is too focused on the minions, the bomber will be able to defeat the witch and they'll be able to continue along with the push. Don't be afraid to let the push flow onto your side of the field. Your princess towers are there to defend for you, and sometimes it's almost necessary to take out the ranged shooters for them to actually be on your side of the field. Using the same push as before, we're going to stop the minions with the arrows and then use the witch to defeat the bomber. Lastly, we'll place a skeleton army to defeat the tank before it reaches our towers. Overall, this defense cost us 11 elixir. Let's see if we can improve that for an even better counter. If we replace the witch with a knight, it can still defeat the bomber, and that will only cost us 9 elixir. We can even cut it down to 8 elixir by using the mini P.E.K.K.A. to distract the bomber and using 1 elixir skeletons to defeat the giant before it reaches our tower. By using even more elixir, we can take out the giant bomber and the minions and still have a mini P.E.K.K.A. and a witch to use now for our own counter push. Now we've turned a large push by the opponent into a large push for ourselves, since we had a very effective counter to the initial push. Alright, so now I'm going to show you guys some gameplay from the deck that's been on your screen for a large portion of this video. I'm going to not show you the whole entire gameplay, but I'm going to show you specific parts where what I said really sort of are illustrated, talking about pushes, counter pushes, tanks, range shooters, things like that. So let's jump right into this gameplay. Alright, so right here he comes in with some goblins, and I send in a witch, and I see a perfect time to make my own push, so I place a giant in front of the witch. See, I have a tank, which is the giant, I have a ranged shooter, which is the witch, and then I have support, which are the skeletons that the witch is sending out. So I have all 3 parts of the push coming in, and as you can see, he doesn't have any particularly good counter, and he doesn't do anything about my witch, which is why my push worked so well. Alright, so right now I have full elixir, so I see this as a perfect opportunity to get a really huge push in. So I start the giant off in the back so that I can gain even more elixir as it moves its way up to the front. Then I place the witch behind it to create the same kind of push that I had before, and I do notice that he's trying to do something on the left. He has his own push, but he has the ranged shooter in front of his tank, which is the Dark Prince, and since his ranged shooter was in front of his tank and not behind his tank, it was easy for me to get rid of the ranged shooter and defeat that side, and since he did nothing to stop my push on the right, it was an easy tower down. Alright, so right here I use the knight as defense on his Dark Prince, and then I place a bomber behind it, kind of making a little mini push, but he does a great job of defeating it since he places the prince behind and destroying my bomber before anything happens. Unfortunately, my knight didn't really have that much health anyways, so it probably wouldn't have done anything, but that was a good example of the opponent stopping my push. Over on the right side, once again, I place down a tank to stop for defense, and I put the Musketeer behind it, and it goes in. I do stop what's going on the left side so that my push can continue on the right side. Unfortunately, since there was 16 seconds left in the game, I didn't continue backing up this push on the right and just worried about playing the defense on the left. But that is another example of sending in a push that is also a counter. So as you guys saw, those were just some examples of using the pushes and counter pushes well with this deck. There are a lot of tanks and ranged shooters in this deck that you can use well for your counters and then your counter pushes and stuff like that. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you guys learned a little something. If you have any questions, please leave them down in the comment section below. I'd love to help you guys out in any way that you can. Let me go back to the deck one more time so that you can see it. It'll also be in the description. Oh, that's not it. Here we go. This is the deck one more time. It'll also be in the description like I said. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Peace out.